as we think about leaps into the unknown. So sometimes I like to think about the Imahot, the biblical matriarchs, as an all-female rock band. It's true, I sometimes do this. Sarah is the leader, not always likable, but the one who reps the band and gets things done. She's probably the drummer, driving the beat of the whole band. Rachel is the beautiful lead singer, with the deceptively strong voice and a little bit of a rebellious streak. Leah definitely plays the bass, that instrument that often gets overlooked, but holds down that counter melody and keeps the music moving forward. Rebecca, she's the lead guitar. She doesn't tell anyone else how to play, but leads in her own direction and throws in a few solos when she needs to. Unlike my imaginary matriarch's rock band, the women in Torah are largely acted upon. Sarai is taken along on Abram's Lech Lecha journey. Hagar is traded from Sarah to Abraham after their names change, and then traded back without her input. Leah is married to Jacob without any clear consent on either of their parts. Rachel waits and waits and waits to marry Jacob. We assume. We don't even know that much about how she spent those years. Torah tells us exactly nothing about her life in this time. But Rebecca, that guitar soloist of my imagination, isn't acted upon. She gets to act. And in a way that's unique, Rebecca's origin story, which we read this week, is a story of a woman and of a person embracing the unknown. When Abraham's emissary finds Rebecca and deems her to be the right wife for his master's son in the story that Rabbi Ross just related, Rebecca's brother and father agree to this transaction. No surprise here, this is both God's plan and the thrust of the narrative. But then something truly extraordinary happens. The family actually asks Rebecca if she is ready to leave, if she's ready to leave her home behind and leap into the unknown. In fact, her family wants her to stay. But as Torah tells us, she said, "I will go." Commentary takes us a step further and suggests that Rebecca's answer was really, "I will go of my own accord, even though you do not consent." Rebecca is ready, even if her family is not. So she decides, she speaks, and she takes a leap into the unknown. Can't be much more rock and roll than that. As I get older, I've begun thinking that leaps of faith are a young person's game. That leaps into the unknown can be easier for those who don't yet have anything to lose. It would make sense then, in this week's parashah, if Rebecca were 16 or 18 or 20 years old when this all happens. But here's the thing. Rebecca isn't a child. Our Midrash confirms, through some gymnastics in the text, that Rebecca is a fully grown adult when she makes this leap, just as her husband-to-be Isaac is. Torah tells us that he was 40. Leaving behind an established life and community, whether familial or professional, it gets harder as we get older. Even when leaving means going towards a goal or a dream or more complete fulfillment of ourselves, it can still be petrifyingly daunting. But as Hillel the Elder said, if not now, when? Right? I'm not being flip or facetious, invoking Hillel. He knew of what he spoke. This sage, whom our tradition follows in almost all of his pronouncements and his rulings, didn't come to Jewish learning, let alone judicial rulings, until he was 40 years old. And he was rewarded for his choice, living like Moses to 120. Many of you recognize and even love the paintings of Claude Monet. Did you know that he didn't experience success until he completely changed his approach and developed a brand new painting style in his 30s and 40s? Impressionism, that is a huge leap. And if you're like me, your go-to source for creative and delicious comfort food recipes is Ina Garten. Ms. Garten left her first career as a policy advisor in the White House and the Office of Management and Budget and bought her specialty food store, the Barefoot Contessa, in her 30s. What can we learn from the fearlessness of Rebecca and Hillel and Monet and the Barefoot Contessa right now? Despite political uncertainty, a looming potential recession, a resurgent pandemic, we can figure out ways to take our own journeys into the unknown. But how can we learn not to be paralyzed by fear or indecision and take that leap? Despite all of the challenges facing us, each of us really can choose to take that leap. We can push aside our fears of failure and learn a new language, or take up a new hobby. We can do something as simple as trying a new flavor or a new type of cuisine that may have seemed daunting to us. We can leave our homes and experience a new corner of our cities on foot, or drop into a new part of the world through a screen. We can talk to strangers while we wait in line or pass other human beings on the street. We can ask someone for their story, and we can really listen. Some of us may even take this era of pandemic to begin new careers, beginning to train in a field that we've always dreamed of entering. Now, I know this specific leap from one profession to another. It's not for everybody, but it is part of my story. For more than a decade after college and grad school, I had a dream job. I researched the fascinating and diverse collections of the Seattle Art Museum, or SAM. I had a particular specialty in institutional history and in provenance, that history of ownership and the changing meanings of an object through time. I was also the curatorial lead for the museum's ancient Mediterranean and Islamic art collections, deciding what went on view, how it would be presented and interpreted for the public, training docents and interns, and lecturing on the collection both locally and nationally. I loved preserving and sometimes even discovering the stories of the museum's collections, their journeys through time and space, and considering what these objects could continue to mean to us today, in conversation with one another and with our visitors. After almost 12 years, though, I had achieved as much as I could at SAM. I was ready for new challenges and new growth. And among a vast array of possible next steps, I started to reconsider my childhood dream of becoming a rabbi. It took over a year of thinking and planning and visiting and learning before I finally decided that rabbinical school was the right next step for me. And so I took a leap. I left my beloved friends and colleagues and career and moved to Jerusalem to begin my rabbinical studies. Some days, it felt like I was starting over from scratch, but I never once regretted my decision or second-guessed myself. It has been an extraordinary journey, if not always easy, but it's been the best choice of my adult life. I didn't exactly leave my life behind the way Rebecca had to, but I just jumped into the next chapter. And class by class, and internship by internship, and relationship by relationship, I began to become a rabbi. Whether it's a new career, a new language, a new friendship, or a new cuisine, we create change in our lives bit by bit. As the Harvard Business Review affirms, once you've decided to embark on the journey, it may take years, if not longer, to reach your destination. But as research has shown, small daily changes can have a compound effect and slowly but surely lead you closer to the person you think you ought to be. When you decide you're ready to take a leap, I want to assure you that you don't have to do it alone. Rebecca entered her new life accompanied by a trusted caregiver, her nurse, Deborah. She's Rebecca. When I entered rabbinical school, I was completely supported by my family and colleagues and friends. I even invited my dad to switch careers and come with me. He declined for now. Fearlessness feels more achievable when there's a community who supports you. Maybe now is your time to jump into something new. So, ask a friend, ask a family member, ask your central community to join you, and take the first step. We're all ready to cheer you on. And Rabbi Buchdahl, if you're watching tonight, I hope you take a leap and learn a new language or a new sport during your sabbatical. But please don't choose a new career. Shabbat Shalom.